Hey Miles, how you doing, man?
I've been good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's been really fun for me. It hasn't even been an ounce of work. It feels like just because I get to talk to people that I normally get to talk to and hear about their experiences and in this crazy, crazy industry. And so I'm really excited to hear from you and share with everybody kind of how you've explored all of this crazy world. So, do you want to tell people like kind of about yourself and like how you got into it?
For sure, man. For sure. So, yeah, I think the my first real background in any kind of video storytelling, even past just film, was at Wake Forest. I took a class my last year there. I'm a media communications major in undergrad, so I took a class my spring semester, I believe, and I was just kind of taken back by it. I'd always known film to be more of a Hollywood thing, in the sense of like big sets and like just multi-million dollar projects. And I think that because that class, my visual storytelling class, was taught by a documentarian. He was a cinematographer, but
Mm-hmm.
his background was really in documentary film. So I kind of saw how you could tell these really big stories with really small teams, and even down to just using iPhones. If you have a compelling story, you can just really do something powerful if you just understand the fundamentals of like cinematography and editing and whatnot. So that was the thing that really kind of fueled the fire for me in the way of wanting to go make films. But I'd always been a person who enjoyed going to the movies with friends, with family. Just always having some kind of show that I'd be watching at the time that was like a ritual for the week. Whether that was like I remember back in the day, I'd be like watching 24 with my mom. Just that was the first real like
Mm-hmm.
serialized like thing that I can remember being like, oh yeah, I wonder what's gonna happen next week, and it's not a cartoon, so to speak. So I just kind of felt like an adult, and just kind of, just would have those more fun experiences with media. So it went from the more viewer side to okay, now I wonder how this is made and how can I make a career out of like doing this and making these things. So I think that was when I really flipped the switch there and decided to do some time in their documentary film program. Um, was there for 2 years, and then I finished my MFA over at UNC School of the Arts because they had a creative producing one that felt like it was more holistic in the sense of even past film, how you turn creative passions into careers. And so that's really kind of how I just got into this, man. And ever since, especially since I got to Wake's doc program, I feel like I've just been doing film nonstop, whether I'm doing student film that's like, my own grade, so to speak, or just helping friends on films, or just hopping on a quick set like day playing. So just kind of been in it since then, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I also went to undergrad at UNCSA, and that film community is just so strong, and especially alumni look out for each other, and the
Yeah.
amount of projects, like even in the short time since I left there, that I've been able to do has been just so amazing to be able to be a part of that friendship, that group bonding that you get from an experience like film school. I know you probably know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, dude. I think that a lot of people, there can be the pros and cons, of course, of doing something like film school. But I think that one of the things that you can never neglect is the fact that you have other creatives around you who want to do the same thing. So there's no shortage of like inspiration. There's no shortage of people wanting to go make stuff. And I think that was really what I loved about UNCSA. It was like the people that I met there, they're my collaborators now. People like yourself, of course. Just even when it comes down to meeting you through a project and knowing that we can do something like this after we've, worked together, is really what I loved about specifically UNCSA's network, because the people I've met have just been incredible.
Yeah, you were talking about that camaraderie. I mean, I feel like film school does have its pros and cons. I went to a high school where I was the camera guy, like I was the guy doing the film stuff, but nobody else was really like kind of exploring that world. And so when you get to a school where everybody does what you do,
Yeah.
it puts you outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and you get to like um, kind of like really learn how to collaborate with other people who have ideas that need to be thrown in, and make something work to tell the story. So I don't know, how did you find doing that, going to a grad program like that?
I think that that was the way that you referenced, when you were in high school and you were the like camera guy, the guy who did video. I think that's really what I loved about when I got to School of the Arts is that it wasn't, being that person, being the guy who does video, being the person that does this or whatever. Like everybody is doing their thing and like everybody are making things. So it's not like you being the solo creative in your group or in your class that you don't feel that way anymore. Everyone's kind of in the same space, whether you have, even if you have different end goals in the sense of like why you do it or what you're trying to get out of your career, so to speak. Like it's like everybody makes films, so now it's like, okay, let's make something together. Maybe you find two people who have very similar ideas, and again, it's just something is born out of that. So I think that was really what I think that's why I love that experience so much, was just being at a conservatory setting in particular, even past film, just people who are so devoted to their craft. Is just an inspiring space to be in.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And then going off of that, I mean, luckily you and I were able to recently work on a short film that we're finalizing, and it's such a unique and really great project. Is there anything that you can kind of disclose about like the story? Are we keeping that under wraps for now, or can we like how would you kind of discuss like approaching that project and promoting it?
Absolutely, man. First of all, so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being willing to jump onto the project. For the audience, the project is a short India short called Sweet Pea, and it's really just a story about this young girl who really is willing to do whatever she needs to be able to look out for her family. She has a younger sister and a younger brother that she cares for in a dystopian world where air is, a commodity. It's something that's paid for, and it's very interesting just at times when we see things in the news where we kind of come close to, okay, well, we can see what a reality of like this would actually look like in the way of like some of the fires and whatnot that happened in Canada. But just it's this really interesting story written by Clark Phillips. She's the writer director on it, and just it's been a fun way to explore again indie filmmaking. We were very fortunate to get a grant through Chromatic Black, who provided some funds for us to be able to do the project, and just to be able to see a story. Well, of course, it goes through the process of applying for the grant, but just to see a story go from an idea to tailoring it to the application process to, okay, now we can do this. Now let's get our script ready to go to set. From there to where we are now, it's awesome to be able to be in this space right now and look back at that entire process. Because, again, when you leave film school, I think it becomes at times a question of how bad you want to go make stuff, because it's not, again, you don't have assignments that are going to make films right now. It's, you got to make your own time, you got to come up with your own funds, you got to just find the crew. You're not at the conservatory anymore. You do have to go hit people up and try to rally the troops, so to speak. So I think that when we get to the finish lines of these projects, it feels a little bit sweeter, because that, yeah, this came out of us just wanting to do this, So I think that we're in that space right now. We've definitely, again, you've seen the process, even just some of the last minute changes we've made. I think again, it's just a constant. Every time you go and make a film, it becomes another lesson in how to do it better. And just going from shorts to long term, looking down the road at wanting to make a feature. Okay, well, if we went through this process in a short, how do we scale some of these things up to now make a long form feature film that, again, if it's indie and you don't have a major studio behind you, we now see how we do this. Now it's not just filming for 3 days. We got to figure out how to get it done in 10 to 15 like kind of days for an indie. So I think that there's always something beneficial out of doing these experiences. And man, at the end of the day, we have a film. So I think that was the goal when we started. We got through it, and I'm proud of our team. So it's been fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. How would you kind of explain to somebody who maybe is listening and wants to get involved in film and is trying to figure out how to pull resources together, specifically like referring to talking with you about getting grants for your projects and just getting your project funded? Like, how would you advise somebody who wants to go about that, getting started,
Absolutely, man. There are just so many ways to make it happen. I think that the first thing is just always figuring out what you're trying to make. because you can make, it's like you can throw 1,000 at something and make a short film. You can throw 50,000 at something and make a short film. Like, and they can be equally good if you figure out, again, if you know what you're trying to make and in what format, before you go into it. So I think that it's just really ironing out. Okay, I have this script. I'd never want to say make going to production seem cheap, but okay, if I'm doing a short and I know my funds are limited, maybe I don't need to have 5 locations. Maybe I got to figure out how to tell the story in 1 or 2. You know what I mean? And maybe doing something like that, having these financial limitations that can also feel like creative limitations. Sometimes those restrictions lead us to better storytelling, because we have to get a bit more efficient or effective of how we do things. So I think that's the first thing. And then once you get to that point where you feel like, all right, now I can't really take anything else out. I can't, like cut the fat from this, so to speak, anymore. Now, how do I get the money? Like, how do I go from this budget? How do I raise it? So you mentioned grants. I think that local arts councils are one of the most like underutilized resources that we have at our disposal. Every city has a arts council or some kind of arts organization that's meant to help local artists go and do what they do. So I know that here in North Carolina, I'm in Fayetteville, so like every year they'll have a artist support grant that'll go out, and you can essentially just pitch a project to them, and they'll have anything from like, depending on the size of the city that you're in, they'll have anything from like maybe $1,500 to like $3,000 that they're willing to give you to go do your project. Or sometimes it's just as simple as, okay, I'm a painter, and here are some of the expenses I know I have every year in the way of like materials that I'm gonna need to go and make my painting. So I write out my budget for them, I send it, and then you just hopefully end up getting it. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't apply to those. So the folks who know to go and do that are, they usually have like an off and on year. So if you get it one year, you can't get it back to back years. But the folks who know is there just know that that's a resource around. So like, I think that's one thing that people can always look at, because again, if there's a world where films are made where in with like $1,500 or $3,000, and just it comes with, of course, having people call in favors in the way of like friends crewing, and like maybe you have some people who are down to cook, and you get to cut some of these expenses down. But like, that could be your equipment. Then all of a sudden you have something that looks and sounds really nice, and then you have people who love you on the side who are willing to like fill in the blanks where you need. I think that that's a big thing. And then another source that is a two birds one stone kind of thing that I love is crowdsourcing. Now I've only participated in one. We had a film last year, Firefly Saved the Night, that we did a crowdfunding through Seed and Spark. We did a campaign with them, and that's a code that's like, once you crack it, and I think we're still trying to figure it out more and more, but once you crack that code, it's like you get access to an audience before you even start talking about funds. It's like you're creating an audience for your project that now has some kind of anticipation around what you're making. I think that's just so important, again, when you're in a world where we're doing indie films and you don't have a studio there with like insane distribution that's gonna like get your project in front of eyes. I think that when you can create your own audiences in the way of like social media and then creating these crowdfunding campaigns, they help. Because specifically with campaigns like through Seed and Spark, a lot of the audiences that are on that platform are other filmmakers. So it's like you have the chance to go and pitch your project, and now there are other people who are like you who understand this process of like, what it takes to really like raise funds to go and make a film, who are willing to either A, just donate, B, donate and spread the word to their own network of filmmakers or whatnot. And then of course, you can send the links to all of your own respective network of people who had nothing to do with film. They could just be coworkers, family and friends who are willing to help you do what you have to do. But I think that is such an awesome way to be able to raise funds that, again, it's not just a give me money thing, because there are incentives for going and doing like a Seed and Spark of, okay, if I do $10 then I get like a credit in the end credits. So, little things that would make the I don't want to say the average person to sound something like crazy, but just like to make people who are not in film, make them feel good, feel like, hey, I really contributed to this and I had a part in making this come to fruition. I think that there are little incentives that we as filmmakers kind of like downplay, just because there's so many people that when we did that Seed and Spark, like it was like, man, I'm going to get a credit in the end credits for doing that. I'm like, yeah, man, like that's the least we can do. You know, we're worried about getting you all these other things to fulfill, you know, you making bigger donations. But some people are just so excited to see their name on the screen. So I think that those are some of the creative ways that you can go about making crowdsourcing fun, and also again just make this process of filmmaking less daunting, and just kind of flip the script on it being like this. There's definitely work, but it doesn't have to be this like miserable thing. You know, I think that we're really at a time and space where there are so many resources that try to like make it better for us, the indie filmmaker.
You're talking about so many really important things that I think is just really great advice for people that don't know where to start. But kind of jumping off of that, how have you found being in Fayetteville and kind of the community there? I know North Carolina is a little spread out in terms of like the hubs between, I mean, you have Charlotte, you have Raleigh, Wilmington, but they're all kind of really far away from each other. How have you found having to work on different things, where to shoot, just kind of how do you go about pulling together people that I feel like are spread out in different places in North Carolina?
Absolutely, man. That's, you know, I think that's really a thing that's part of a reason why when I came to Fayetteville is just seeing the infrastructure that could support film, and just kind of not seeing the film industry here that I know can really thrive here. You know, and it's some of those things that's like more of a long game. But I think that, you know, when you do come to the point where, you know, you do have like the Wilmingtons that's got the East Coast down, and then the Charlottes where, you know, whenever there are some bigger projects, like again, they just filmed the Judy Blume, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret film out there. That was like one of the bigger films that were there for like months long, that really kind of, that the local economy was really, it was really thriving when that came through, just in the way of, again, you have 8 months of a film set there that's going to buy the supplies and the materials that are there. The local film like camera houses and rental houses are happy because, again, we're renting their equipment out for months at a time. So, you know, Charlotte has that space, but I think that a lot of times Charlotte can be known for more of like the agency look at things in the way of like marketing. So if you're going there, you can day play on some quick sets for an agency that, you know, just needs to film something for a client, and, you know, really cool network to build out there as well. But I just felt like Fayetteville had so many access to resources, the location, of course, being in North Carolina has the tax incentives that come with filming here. So I just really wanted to see if there can be something done to help bring some of that community here. I think that what you got at just now is one of the biggest things that, as I've kind of like done forecasting of what it would take to, again, bring film here, that's one of the biggest things is the crew. And I think that's where also giving the correct education with what, like, all the different jobs that film production entails. I think getting that education out so that the next generation of filmmakers can know that, okay, no, it's not just cinematographers, it's not just editors. Okay, like within lighting, there are all these different positions in the way of gaffing, grip, whatever that I can go and do. And if I know that that's there, then, you know, when I go and I have, for example, some electrical background and I like film, maybe that's the way I can transfer over to doing this career that I enjoy. Or, you know, even if I don't do that at all, I can just know when I'm going into like college that this is an avenue for me to take, versus like you getting to college and then realizing what all these different positions are. So I think that it just becomes this very like holistic approach to how we make some of that happen here. But yeah, man, the crew is definitely one of the biggest things, because you got to bring people in. So I think that's where, again, understanding where, whenever you are doing a project, like if it were to be filming a short here, it's understanding that that's going to probably be one of the bigger parts of our budget, is like if people need to be travel here and then have lodging here, that's an expense that we have to cover. Because other than that, you know, that's where you got to get creative with the producing of it too. Maybe you focus on getting people who are local, or, you know, maybe there's like where there are some little jobs that, okay, yes, we could get a quote unquote A-list person to go and do this, but there's somebody who could do this just as well that's B-list, but is here, and it's not going to go against, you know, the integrity of or quality of our project. I think that's where, again, there's just so many ways, so many different ways of like making things happen, where you just kind of have to figure out what works best for your resources and what you have at your disposal, and then just kind of go with it, man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that North Carolina definitely has amazing resources and people on the East Coast that's kind of overlooked. And you mentioned you wanting to bring more people and more film to there. Is that kind of your end goal, is to stay in North Carolina and work as a producer, or where do you see yourself kind of going in your career farther down the road?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think that leaving when I graduated from School of the Arts in 2020, so we graduated kind of right into the pandemic, but
Mm-hmm.
I was just super grateful because, again, getting back into that like UNCSA network that I had from, in particular, like my class of filmmakers. A lot of us were very just set on doing this here in North Carolina. I think that traditionally the motto can always be, okay, I go to LA, I go to New York, I go to Atlanta. When, again, we do have Wilmington here, we do have Charlotte here. Raleigh is like there, and it's available in people who know the opportunities in an area like Raleigh. Like, it can be one of those things where you can sustain a career doing that. But I think that at the same time, we kind of overlook, like you just said, the resources that are here, and there's the potential of like making projects here. So I think that for me, and I know that for some of my friends as well, one of the big things is quality of life, and just
Mm-hmm.
what how you want to live. Like, yes, you can go live in a. It's funny, my partner and I were talking about this today. Like, when she was younger, she just wanted to go to New York and do that. And now she's older and kind of like, no, I can live here, and I can go to New York, and I can just take a trip and come back. I don't have to live in a box and like go for the dream. And it's never going to be any disrespect to people who do that, because I think that there are certain industries, for example, like theater, where all the opportunity is there. You know what I mean? And if you find the right group of people who are on the same page as you, then making something like living in a big city like that where it can get expensive is, you kind of soften that blow. But for filmmakers, man, I think that it is just like we have so much flexibility in today's time where things can be made from almost anywhere. People can get on something like Zoom and have their meetings. And you can really, like we saw through the pandemic, people were producing and getting ready to get stuff done all remotely. So,
Mm-hmm.
you should have to start asking the questions, same way that a lot of these big corporations were asking within, even past film, just, okay, we had our workers not here in this building for so long. We save so much money. Like, people are happier, they're more productive. Like, you have to ask yourself the same kind of question. Like, do I have to go and make myself miserable pursuing this, or are there things that I can do to kind of minimize the risk, so to speak, of like pursuing this career? So for me, man, it's being here in Fayetteville, thinking long term. I'm teaching, and even just stuff like that is something where you do it for the purpose of having the living expenses that you need to, of course, knock out, but also having the flexibility of, last week was my last work week. The kids have been out of school for 2 weeks, and then we had to have 2 weeks of just getting your classroom ready, your lesson plans, and then you had the summer. You could go and teach if you want to, but this is where, as a filmmaker, I know, okay, if I need to just go hop on a set for a day play once a week, twice a week, where I can, then that's where I can where I can like fill in some income, that's not going to come for the next 2 months, but also I'm like giving love to what I'm doing in the way of wanting to pursue an industry, a career in filmmaking. So I think that,
Right.
again, man, it's just getting creative with how we do this.
Yeah, that's so important for people to know that um, even if you do go to film school, you don't have to immediately move to one of those hubs to do what you do. You don't
Yeah.
have to even do necessarily narrative film for the rest of your life. If you want to do commercial work, if you want to do music videos, if you want to work at a marketing firm, you can still get a lot of joy out of the creativity in that.
Yep.
And and if you're happier with a better quality of life where you're at doing that, that's almost more important than, like you said, living in a box.
Dude, like, I'm with you, man. And I'm loving hearing, that so many people are getting kind of on that wave as well, because it's just important, man. I think how we live while we're doing this is something that we can't neglect, and it's something that we're we get to decide up to some point, we get to really make the choice in what kind of lives we create for ourselves. And I think that's one thing that we really can control. So I think it's just understanding that it's an option, and just some of the older ways of doing things aren't the only way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely super important. Well, is there anything coming up other than definitely everybody keep a lookout for Sweet Pea. It's such a really cool little project that I was so happy to be a part of. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And other than that, do you have anything exciting like coming up that people should look out for? I'll definitely make sure that all of your information is linked below so people can check out your stuff and keep up to date with what you got going on. But is there anything else you want to promote right now, or has Sweet Pea been your main focus? Because I know how much of a task it is to produce even a short film like that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Definitely with the Sweet Pea plug is much appreciated, man. Thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
This summer I publish a digital magazine for creatives called Create Magazine. I'll send you a link for that, man. People can check out a free issue just to see what it's about. But I think that just in the heart of what you do here with this, that's so much what we do with the magazine, in the sense of like trying to just provide information for people. You know what I mean? It's more, the magazine is more for like a creative in general, but we do of course have filmmaking stuff, but it's just really there to push people to go make things, man. Just see that there's so much less of a barrier than we create at times, between like having an idea and then going to execute it. So that's we have our next issue coming out this summer, and we're just going to be rolling through with that, some blog stuff, and man, just that's where the focus for the summer is for me. But just hoping to definitely be able to do little film sets here and there, just getting to continue to meet cool people such as yourself, man. It really has been a pleasure working with you, and super talented sound editor and so many other things. Excuse me, sound designer and so many other things. So it's been awesome, man.
Likewise to you. When you say we about the magazine, are you working with other people, or are you working with an organization to produce this? Like, how do you go about making this magazine?
Absolutely, man. So it's definitely indie ran. And for the most part, dude, it's just like whenever people have any content that they want to bring to us. And I think that it's just been really coming to that point. My little brother is starting to really explore. He's going through college right now, but he's really starting to get infatuated with media. So I kind of had him doing graphics and whatnot, and now he's getting a little bit more of understanding holistic, like analyzing insights and whatnot on social. So that's really the bulk of the team, past like people sending content our way, and the way folks who have fashion blogs that they already do that they want to just kind of push to the publication, and it just becomes a collaboration, and it's with the idea of just, this is a creative community, and we just have people who are all doing their own things, and whether we know it or not, there's so many intersections that we share in our creative processes. So I think that whenever people just find that there's a space for them to share their work, or share an article that they wrote, a thought piece, they can just find a space for it here. So and I'll also send that along as well. There's a space for people to submit things like short films for right now. There's
there you go.
Definitely space to share that with our audience, man. Would love to.
That's so cool. I'm so glad that you're doing that. That's so important for people to do it, and just gather a community and celebrate people's work and promote it, and just get it out there.
Yes, exactly.
So. Thank you so much again for doing this. It was great to have you, and definitely everybody check out Miles and everything he's got going on down below.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Best of luck with this endeavor, dude. I'm glad that you're doing this for the filmmakers out there.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Take care, all right?
Take it easy, man. You too.